Assalamualaikum guys, what's going on? New episode of the Fedika podcast. This week we had brother Mohammed Isaaq. He came straight from Birmingham, straight from Brum. Beautiful guest, honestly, such an amazing episode. You guys are going to love this. We spoke a lot about self-development through knowing yourself, understanding your personality, understanding what your priorities in your life as well, and also the importance of emotional intelligence, the language, speaking the language of the people. I was also say we also focus a lot on goal setting in the new year, more of a holistic approach. And honestly, we went on a lot of tangents, but it was a beautiful thing. It was exactly what we needed, a lot of stories. And yeah, you guys are going to love this one. Enjoy.
If you don't have anything to boast for, you're never going to have anything to boast for the rest of your life.
21.
Now, obviously speaking about a particular context, and we definitely know that they didn't have the teenage phenomena that we have. For us, when does the teenage years start?
13.
When does it stop?
19.
No, it doesn't stop at 19. Unfortunately, when it was introduced, it was at 19. But it goes up to I don't know what it is in Australia, but in the UK, it goes up to 26. In the States, I know it goes further than that.
You still have an excuse for not being your full potential. Yeah,
exactly. Basically, you have the whole teenage thing is you're old enough to do, but you're not old enough to take responsibility. That's the unfortunate formula of teenage years. So consider that now how it impacts a 26-year-old man.
He's 26.
I'm 27.
I had lads, man. I saw one of the lads outside the mosque, and in his pocket, and he had a alcohol can in his pocket, and I just grabbed him. I said to him, so you got in all sorts of madness, but I never expected you to be drinking. And that's what we referred to in the UK. And then he just looked down, and I said, I expected more from you. That's my thing. It's we as an ummah are more, we're sitting here, yeah. Every single one of you could be an owner of 5 businesses. You have that potential. Straight up, you could be, I don't know, maybe you guys are regular at the Tahajjud prayers, but you could be regular at the Tahajjud prayer, owner of 5 businesses, and eventually having a foundation where you're lobbying MPs, on God knows what issue. Everyone has that potential, yes or no? Just 4 of us,
I agree,
4 of us, what could just 4 of us do, bro? Every brother has that potential, but we limit by the service that we've created as a society, as a community, as Muslim community. Look how much limited things that we've offered. So I told this kid, I said, I expected more from you. And maybe that drive that I have is because I was fortunate that some people looked at me and saw more in me than I saw. And I think that's what probably the Ummah needs the most. One of my favorite teachers were the ones who saw in me more than what I saw. Remember that moment where you're and you're thinking, I can't be forgiven. And then the sheikh's Allah can forgive it. And you're oh yeah, maybe I can be forgiven. Possibilities, higher hope, hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, this world would make it so bleak and grey. And so I said to the kid, I expected more from you. And he goes, nah, bro, Isaaq. Pulled it out of his pocket and he chucked it in the bin. Yeah, he goes, nah, say no more, yeah. And I said, I grabbed him close, yeah. I got this from a few of my teachers. They hold a lot, yeah. I remember, the man, the young lad who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he goes, permit me to do the thing, yeah. Everyone knows, yeah. And then, what did the Prophet ﷺ do? See, people they see this thing, some of the Sahaba were why would you ask the Prophet, permit me to fornicate? But he's just these guys had enough, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, one of the Prophet ﷺ pulled him close to him. So people forget the importance of physical.
It's the emotional intelligence. Even when you're giving, there's what you're saying and then how you're making them feel, and that's why that touch.
We're all recipients of this. We're all not recipients. We're all desiring that. We're all desiring just help and love and all of those things that sometimes seem a bit but it's true. Every addiction is just an attempt to connect to something. Every time one pulls out their phone is to connect, and at the end of scrolling is the same void that one meets once again, which is that it did not connect me to the creator is what we're seeking ultimately. Anyway, so this kid, I said to him, I pulled him close and I said, I might not be here tomorrow, and who knows, you might come back and pick that up. But I need you to do it for you, not for me. Because he's trying to give me that respect. I said, forget it. I'm irrelevant. I'm irrelevant. That's the truth, isn't it? We're all so irrelevant. But the point is, one's own actions for one's own end. And then he just went back and he pulled it at the bin and he opened it and then he spilled it all out. He said, I won't go back for it.
That's good. That's commitment, yeah.
That's each and every single one of us with our own alcohol, our own
and
things
vices.
that we have. Yeah, our vices, everyone's got them,
That's interesting though, because that statement, like, I expected more from you. Like, I don't know if it'll hit home with a lot of the other people listening, but when you hear that, you're like, damn, I'm not living up to my potential or who I want to be.
Yeah.
And that's just a really, like, interesting thing to say to someone. I want to just take a step back because some people might not know exactly who you are and, or where you studied or where you get this mindset from. So maybe we'll just touch back on, like, because I know we spoke about your age off podcast. You don't have to bring it up on the podcast. But alhamdulillah, you're a young man, young guy trying to spread khair in this world and benefit people. Where did your journey of seeking knowledge, going to Tarim or going overseas, or even just seeking knowledge under, alims back home?
Well, it's the same thing that spurs me even now when I'm, if I'm involved in anything that's khair. It's the same principle. I don't really go to save anyone, and I don't go to help the communities. Allah says, "Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nar," like save yourself and your family from the fire. So I'm actually here just trying to get good deeds. That's ultimately why I'm here. And in the process, Allah tells us how many times, that those who do good actions, Allah tells us, خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, we created man in the best of form, ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ, then we lowered him to the lowest of the low. Everybody knows about their higher potential, and everybody knows about their low moments. Sometimes the lowest of the low moments we can all recall. Right? Allah says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمَلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, right? And except the ones who believe and do good actions. So all of us, we all believe, alhamdulillah, and we have that, and we also recognize the importance of good actions. So for me, I just, as a young man, I remember just thinking to myself, what is life and where am I going, and is there more to all of this? Even growing up as a Muslim, sometimes we can have a very inherited Islam, but do we really believe it in the degree? I remember one sheikh saying that, if heaven wasn't created and hell wasn't created, if they didn't exist, would you still pray like you do? And I was like, and then he goes, so who are you worshipping? And I just thought, subhanallah, this exchange almost for like a transaction, and it was nice because it works and it still works. Allah, you read the Quran and Allah is telling you, I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z. We need that. But at the same time, there is a moment where you ask yourself, what do you want to do with your life? And in the pursuit of mastering the self, which is an essential thing that I think everybody's trying to do, just trying to, Allah says that day when nothing will benefit a person, not their wealth nor their children, except the one who comes to God with a sound heart. I mean, that's the ultimate pursuit of every single person here, meaning virtually as well, right? That it's about rectifying the heart. So for me, that was part of my journey in life. So I did all the stuff like my dad, kind of told me, make sure you get a degree done by this age. So I tried to get everything done, and I was very fortunate coming from Birmingham. We had lots of traditional scholarship, sound scholarship, meaning sound. And then so we were able to study a lot of our earlier foundational subjects.
So during school years, you're attached to studying
school years. I think more it was just recognizing that school is all about which guy you are, right, in school. Yeah. So which guy do you want to be? And you have different options. If you're a big tough guy, then that's your access to transcendence in school. Like your social class in school is determined by either you're a funny guy, you're a handsome guy, you're a cool guy, So I didn't have any of those things.
Or a footballer, yeah.
Yeah, or you're a footballer, you're a sports guy. I definitely didn't have that. Coming from a sporting family as well, I got older brother, younger brother, top sportsman. So, but it was like deen is always something. For the maskeens, it doesn't matter, just get deen, yeah? So we just try to pray. Yeah, we try to pray. I had a half decent joke, so I was a bit of an entertainer. I had fights all my life in school, like every year, sometimes multiple fights. So I never backed down from anything. So I had a decent, so I did all those things. But for me, most of my early years, we had just an attachment to mosque. If I had a chance to go to a dhikr session, I gotta give credit to my older brother, because I guess he was on his journey and it was something for us to do. We would go to the mosque. We'd do the dhikr on a Saturday night, and then after that, he would have a nice Subaru, and so we'd go to a place where sometimes people drove really fast cars. I gotta be careful what I say, but we have those places in Birmingham where people bring their really nice cars and show off their cars, and it's like a whole vibe. We used to get milkshakes and just stand around, and we were like young lads, like we didn't know what was going on. We were just like, yo, nice car.
If you're still into cars, if you still are, there's a place in Melbourne we can take you on Wednesday night.
All right,
A past guest, we have a Muslim brother.
Yeah.
He came on the podcast. He has a business called Glenny Kebabs, and he does car meets on Wednesday nights.
Not far from you.
Yeah.
Then let's go. Yeah, just hit me up. Yeah.
Done.
There's something about, I think it's part of, I would probably argue it's part of masculinity to some degree, where there has to be almost, because cars for most people are an extension of their egos, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So and so there's it's natural for one to adorn one's ride, right? It's even in the Quran, subhanAllah reference. So people so just to adorn like a car or something like that, or something that you have, it's like a possession. You want to look after it. I wasn't like a overly, I never bought my car still. I always had hand-down cars from other people, which I was cool with. They did the job. But to be honest with you, it was actually like maybe 18, 19, 20, I started listening to Sheikh Hamza. I really just got so influenced into some of those early lectures were just like, man, like what are we living for and who are we going to be? And so this type of like material just didn't do it anymore. When you get introduced to like the meta world, metaphysical, not meta from digital, but beyond this physical form, there's such a beauty in and an enjoyment in dhikr, for example, and learning and good people and good conversation and dhikr Allah, just to remember God. And we forget like what it means to just remember God. Like it's so amazing. Like, and then you also know you're being remembered. In fact, who remembered who first? Because everything happens by His will. So we open ourselves up to it. Anyway, so these things were just so amazing. Like, I remember like at university, and I was just a normal person, but I was active. Anyway, and then I just continued to seeking knowledge, and then my dad was like, just get your job, get a job for yourself, and then you can think about if you want to travel and whatever. So I quickly tried to get everything done, but I was quite active always in the community, a lot of charity work, a lot of community work. Alhamdulillah, I'm very fortunate. One of the things that and I'll say this, people don't realize, but charity or volunteering of any sort will give you far more than you give it. Always. I've never seen anyone who's done that work except that they've received like really tenfold. So if you give your money for God, you get like a zakat, so purification of your money. But the Prophet ﷺ said, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ zakat, that everything has a zakat on it. So your skill set have a zakat. So if you give your skill set for God's sake, then what's going to happen to that skill set?
Barakah,
It's going to get the 10x, it's going to get purified, all that stuff that happens with money. So imagine 10xing your skill set. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, you can do public speaking. And it's like, oh, it's actually 10xed. So you start to get it paid back to you. Loads of things. If you say, I have nice hair and I want to give my hair for the sake of God by showing that Muslims are not disheveled, what they represent is in Hollywood, but we actually are nice dressed, nice looking guys, then Allah will purify and 10x that for you. Then someone will say to you, what's your skin routine? And all you do is wudu.
You must get that a lot.
No, it's just everybody. It's like our tradition was the Prophet ﷺ, he always spoke about how much he smiled and how beautiful he was, and it didn't make sense if we ever got it taught from a guy who was disheveled or didn't smile. It's like, but when you do find a person who carried it, there's certain teachers, I don't know, like Habib Kadhim, if you've ever met Habib Kadhim, he's from the Yemen. Like when I saw him in 2007. I saw him once and I didn't see him again for like 10, 15 years, and I ended up studying in Yemen. But I just saw him smile, and I'd never seen a guy smile like that. And I was like, young lad. I just thought, man, what is that? You get drawn to what is essentially prophetic beauty. And so anyway, and then and then I kind of felt like I'd taken from my resources close by, because we had lots of knowledge, we had lots of teachers. Not that I exhausted and I'd studied everything from the people that were around, but what I was more interested in was that spiritual rectification. So I sought out places that had that. I actually have. I concluded I will never share this stuff on like a public platform, so I'm going to stop a little bit here. because it's not about me, right? So you wanted me to introduce myself. I definitely went on a tangent. But anyway, I basically decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet any person that is close to God, that has given their life to God and has transformed, you know, who have alchemized themselves. And who are those people? So I went out to like Morocco, Mauritania, and it took me to many places over the years, and it became years. And in the process, I went and I did some studying along the way. But what I was interested in was true transformation, prophetic, that makes a person go from being anti-Rasul to now becoming a Sahabi, to having better Iman than all of us. How could we get that?
Could you tell us one of the stories? Because obviously you went to many places and we're not going to be able to touch on every single one.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell me maybe one story that impacted you the most, or you recall on straight away?
I think the kind of like one of the pinnacle of the journeys for me was to meet somebody like Murabit al-Hajj, and just to see him once. Now,
You
this
met
was
him?
somebody, yeah, alhamdulillah, yeah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, I just, you know, I was in mosque years ago and I was teaching in madrasa. And sometimes I guess remember I was mentioning about higher possibilities and higher potential. Sometimes it'll come from in fact, it will more often come from younger people, because younger people still believe that transformations and amazing things can happen. It's only us who say, because of our observable evidence and empirical perspectives, we say, oh, that's not possible. But a person who believes in God, who says, no, of course it's possible. Like, could your favorite teacher walk through that door right now? Of course he can if he wanted to. You know, and so it's like belief, like what's possible. So I was sharing some stories about the great Murabit al-Hajj and what a life he had lived in pursuit of truth, and his dissemination of knowledge, and the level of mastery over the nafs that he established is great. What's so amazing about him is the fact that, you know, I don't know if you guys know much about him, but in his early days when he would go and like read tahajjud, like, so he left the capital city to go out into like the deserts, and like, you know, for like, it's like a day's journey by car. So what was it like back in those days? You know, he passed away a couple of years ago, Allah yarhamuhu. But he left because he thought that the people were too connected to the world. And if
He's in Mauritania?
In Mauritania, imagine that. They thought, and that place, you know, I remember Sheikh actually said that on the rooftops of the city where he came from, every evening you would hear Quran being recited. And he said that in his time, he felt that people were too connected to the world. So he went out and did, you know, zuhud, which was to detach himself from the world, and open up a small madrasa. And he actually walked it all the way to do
Hajj, yeah?
Hajj, yeah.
He walked from Mauritania to Mecca.
Mauritania. And
That's
how did he survive? He walked and he spent his money until he reached a place, and once he was out of money, he taught, made money, then carried on going. What a life. Like, if you're going to live a life, do that, man. You know.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's not long ago. That's the thing. That's the story
beauty,
you
right?
hear. You think it's 100 years after the Prophet.
Yeah.
When you go, oh, wait, this is 40 years ago, you're like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, subhanallah. So he did that. And when he went to, when he saw the Kaaba first time, you know, he made dua, like, you know, everyone makes that dua. And one of the duas that they say he made was that he gets lots of students, so he can. That's a passion of a true teacher, someone who's inherited, that he can give the knowledge. But he lives in the middle of the Sahara. He lives in the Sahara, and so who does Allah send his way? Some great scholars, like students from the West, and one of them is Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who's taught like.
That's the only reason I know who.
So so look at the dua was answered by giving him somebody who's actually going to have, and many other scholars, by the way, in the West who've gone out and studied, and they have like thousands of students themselves, and so Allah gives the ajr. Like, it's just amazing, isn't it? And when he was young, they said that when he would pray his tahajjud, already get into tahajjud, but imagine that in the middle of the Sahara, you know, and it gets very cold at night, and he would go and pray on the sand dune where the wind was the harshest on him. And his mum, you know, they said that his mum would put a cover so that to protect him from how harsh the winds were. And after he'd finished his 2 cycles, he'd move and pray in another place just to feel the hit on his nafs.
It's a certain strength. It's like I hear like Ali ibn Abi Talib would say, I used to yearn for the hottest day of the year so I could fast. And that was he's like, I wanted that challenge. And then now summer here in Melbourne, you know, it's getting hot, sunset 8:30. now the idea of fasting Mondays and Thursdays, like, nah, Maghrib's a bit late.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I can't wait. Ramadan here, I don't know if you know, we break fast like 5:30.
Yeah, early, yeah.
Wallah, easy life, bro.
Yeah.
And daylight saving is switching in between the middle of the month. So
Yeah.
this year, the first couple of days we broke fast 6:30 and then switched to 5:30.
Subhanallah.
And then next year it's going to be half the month. And people are like, man, it's getting
Yeah,
difficult.
like
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
struggle. Yeah.
And
For
then
us, these
these
guys,
guys
it's the
are
opposite, right? So I had that when I was young. So when I was young, like your parents were doing the full,
Yeah.
the fast that we're doing now.
the
So it's
8:30, 9
flipped
p.m.
for
yeah.
us. So yeah, it's getting easier for us and it's getting more difficult for you guys.
And
It's just
subhanAllah, these
amazing,
noble
but-
characters, they want the struggle. And
But-
us, we want the easy.
And it's like, but like you said, they still existed. So I'm telling these kids this story, and then the kid, so this beautiful child looks at me and he goes, Isaaq bhai, is that person, is he still alive? I said, yes. And he said, why haven't you gone to see him? That's what he said to me. The kid said to me, why haven't you gone to see him? And I said, I don't know why. I went home. I just said, time to leave. So I gave my resignation and I said, I'm gone.
And you were in Mauritania then?
Yeah, so that was my intention to go, but I had to go pick up some Arabic along the way, and I thought I'd meet some other scholars. Like I thought his son was in Spain at that time, so I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll go to Spain.
Is his son still in Spain?
No, he's back in Mauritania
Okay.
now. But anyway, so that was my personal role. Everyone's got their own kind of journey, and it led to that moment for me. And then just to go there, and even when I got there, like I thought it was fun. It's a really funny story. But I have a condition that if I ever share this story, there has to be tea there, and we're really comfortable. Now this is a public platform, so I won't be sharing this story.
yeah.
But essentially, it's like a really beautiful, detailed story. It's actually really funny as well. Long story. I thought I had a contact. I had no contact. I'm in Nouakchott, and I have zero way to get to the Sheikh in the middle of the Sahara. And I'm like, what do we do? And then the story goes on, and whatever the story is.
You found your way.
Yeah.
Can I ask, how was the Arabic in Mauritania? Because a lot of people say like the level you have to be. I remember I think Hamza Yusuf even said like you have to do like 2 years study to get to Mauritania,
Yeah.
and then you'll be a beginner there.
Yeah,
And then
to be honest with you, like I was at like a beginner level, and I was in Morocco at that point, and I was studying. So it's really funny. Like I made that intention, and all of a sudden I find a teacher in Morocco. I'm living in his house with his family, beautiful soul, really amazing person. But I was struggling with my Arabic because outside of the house, everybody was speaking the Darija, which is like, it's so difficult to speak to them. Half of it's like French. They're like, you're like, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, kif haluk? And then they're like, ça va? And you're like, bro,
It's confusing.
But subhanAllah, when I got there, I felt like my Arabic just kind of became easy for me. And that's also like a thing I learned. You learn these things about life, which is Allah will make it easy for you. Like I can't imagine if I was to give you the full details, you'd be like, bro, like how did you make it? Allah makes things easy for you. So in the same way, all of a sudden, my Arabic I couldn't speak at all, and now I'm in Mauritania because I had a confusion because I thought the guy I was going with was like pro Arabic speaker, and this guy couldn't speak either. And Allahu Akbar, it's a funny story. It's really funny, but in the end, we made it. But it's like it depends. Anywhere you want to go study, where you want to go like into the real school, you need to have Arabic beforehand because you want to be in a full Arabic environment. Generally, like I was a bit fortunate because I was doing private studies with my teacher, and after that I did go to Egypt. But Egypt is one of the best places to go to. Eventually I went to Jordan as well and I studied there. But you want to get your Arabic down first. That's the best thing. I met students here, mashallah, 2 sisters, they came and they were like, we want to go study. I said, just do Arabic until you go. So you've got your Arabic down. So when you do go out, you can maybe then study a specific text, or if you're able to do a full program.
And you recommend going to Egypt?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bit of experience now. So based on people's I would literally say to people, like, give me your circumstances. How long you got? How much money you got? Who you going with? What's your current level? And from that, I would recommend.
I might have to ask you off camera then, because I'm planning on going with my wife this year, next year.
Cool, we'll have that conversation.
Done.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation.
And how was Jordan? Because we studied in Jordan.
Yeah,
we did a year.
Where did you study? Qasid.
No, we don't have that much money.
Yeah. On a budget, man.
We studied next to the university.
Yeah,
there's a kulliya there. There's a college.
Yeah. How did you like it?
It was good. We did 2 terms.
Yeah.
So 2 levels out of the 4. Honestly, pretty good. We lived in Hayl Kharabsha.
Yeah.
We lived there for 5 months.
Nice.
And then we lived 4 months with students from the kulliya because we just really wanted
What year was this?
2017. Don't say you were there.
I just left. I'd left.
When did you leave?
We're
I'd left.
brothers, by the way.
No, you're not.
Swear to God.
No,
I tried to tell you
Wallah.
before.
Yeah.
no, you're not.
Wallah, we're actually not messing with you. We actually traveled together. That's why.
No
yeah,
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll
older.
show you some
That's nice
pictures.
to see, mashallah. So you
Yeah.
guys were studying together as brothers. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
man.
Alhamdulillah.
Straight out after high school, like.
I turned
Mashallah.
18,
That's when he went.
left 2 days
Good,
later.
man. I like that. Yeah, good. Well done, man.
So when
Spend
we-
your. That's my thing to like all the young people, man. Just spend your time, man. Like, if what you gonna do with your life, like Imam al-Haddad says, by the age of 20 or 21, if you don't have anything to boast for, you're never gonna have anything to boast for the rest of your life.
21.
Now, now, obviously speaking about a particular context,
Yeah.
and we definitely know that they didn't have the teenage phenomena that we have. For us, when does the teenage years start?
13,
When does it stop?
19.
No, it doesn't stop at 19. Unfortunately,
Okay,
yeah, when it was
nowadays.
introduced, it was at 19. But it goes up to like, I don't know what it is in Australia, but in the UK, it goes up to like 26. In the States, I know it goes further than that.
Like you still have the you
Yeah,
have an
you live like a
excuse for
kid,
not being
man.
your full
Yeah.
potential. Yeah,
Exactly,
I get
yeah.
that.
Basically, you have the whole teenage thing is you're old enough to do, but you're not old enough to take responsibility. That's the unfortunate formula of teenage years. So
Yeah,
consider
interesting.
that now how it impacts a 26-year-old man.
It's 26.
I'm 27.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Subhanallah.
just absolutely
Subhanallah.
crazy. And then the other thing is like in those years, like so for me, one of the things that got me was I thought, how many years did I spend studying at uni? And I did a postgrad and blah blah blah. And I thought, man, I didn't give nowhere near this amount for learning the language of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like he's your beloved. He's the beloved of God. Like at least and he that's his language. Shaykh once gave a story, it's a funny, you might find it on YouTube. It's a funny story about a man, and there's like an advert. It's an advert for learning Italian. And the story goes that this guy sees this Italian girl, and that's the whole story as to why he goes to learn Italian now, because he sees the Italian girl. Now if man can do it for like a dunyawi beloved, you can study Italian for her. What would you do for your true beloved? And it's one of the signs of like your love, isn't it? And sometimes people get disheartened. They say, "Oh, geez, that means I don't love the Prophet." I feel like shaking him up and slapping him and saying, "No, that means so do stuff that will inculcate love rather than being
increase it.
passive about it." Like it's so amazing in Islam how it doesn't like Muslim, Mu'min, Muhsin. All these words are active. And I'm sure you studied Arabic. So ism fa'il. They're active participles. You're not Muslim. What do they call us in America? Muslim. That's the receiver of oppression.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Muslim is a ism fa'il, all of this. So it's such an active deen, and you gotta understand as well, like with young people as well. If you don't make yourself active, like Imam Shafi said, you'll be made active. You'll be made active with shar. If you don't make yourself active with good, if you don't busy yourself with good, you'll be made busy with bad. And in English we have the same phrase, devil makes work for idle hands. So your energy will flow somewhere. Who's gonna dictate that? Are you gonna use deen and search for the truth, or are you just gonna be a product of the Dajjalic matrix system and just be another little,
How did your studies get you into the mindset of now the course you run about knowing yourself and reaching your full potential? Because a lot of mashaykhs or people that study the deen, they don't come back with that mindset of teaching.
Yeah.
It's like an idea where I'm trying to teach people to attain the best in this life and the next,
Yeah.
which isn't a common approach to students of knowledge.
Look, it's interesting and it's odd that it's not a common approach when we have a dua which is literally Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. Everybody wants a bit of good in this world and a good in the next world. And if you realize Sharia is good for you in this world, Sharia is like the best lifestyle program
For the dunya, yeah.
for the akhirah as well.
True, yeah.
Because it's not, see, you have to understand, we have like two terms for this world. One is dunya, right? Danaya, the lowly thing, to reach for something you can never, like a shiny grape you can never get. That's danaya, literally means in a verb, to reach for a juicy grape that you can never get. What a word in Arabic, danaya, huwa danaya. He reached for a grape that he couldn't actually reach. That's dunya. It's just a big juicy grape that you can't actually get. Right, so get off your phone and move on. Because the phone has the juicy grape experience People think it's attainable. No one, Scarface taught us a long time ago this doesn't happen. No one gets happy at the end in the dunya. But we have another word for the whole experience. What's that? Alam. Now, alam is which pattern?
Oh, we didn't do that one. We didn't do that much.
You know this. It's ism ala, which is the noun for the tool, the darab, right? The tool for hitting is darab. So the tool for alima, to know, is alam. So the alam is the tool to know God. That's what the alam, the world is. So when you understand that the alam is that, then it is always Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. If I display patience, right, even in my difficulties, and you rob me and I forgive you, and you rob me and I forgive you, and you rob me and I take you to court, but you rob me and I forgive you. So I took 3 other guys I forgave one, I took to court. What do I live with? I live with the virtues. People will say, well, by dunyawi standard, you lost out on money that these guys stole. But the alam teaches me in this life, but I live virtuous. I forgave people. It's always win with deen. It's always win, even in this life. We don't, as long as we remember virtues still exist, then we never lose out. Does that make sense? If you understand that living virtuous is a win, then you will still always win in this world. There's no separation. You learn to purify yourself. You will have clearer skin. I'm not selling dunya benefits by saying that. I'm not saying sign up to Islam to have, but they are dunya benefits by being Muslim. That's what the Masakeen came, because they were like, yeah, cool, we're going to get food. Like, how many youngsters went to mosque because there was pizza there? So they ended up at the Friday gig. Why did you follow Islam? Because you know it makes you a better man. Even now you still follow it. Remember you saw Jordan? I was in Jordan. I sat there. I came home once. I used to live with this Syrian guy, and so his mates were over. Yeah, so they were like, so he said, this is a student from the UK and he's studying Arabic. I'm sure you had these experiences. So they're like, MashaAllah, ghulam, ja'a min Britania, fi talab al-ilm wa kada, yeah. So then and all I had was Fusha. I always, because I jumped so many countries, I couldn't get the Amiyah down long enough to blend. So I always stood out like a sore thumb. I was like, whatever. Like it would be very like Shakespearean, yeah. Right? So then I replied, and then he said, limada,
They dragged the words.
Yeah, he's like, because they put that other voice on, which is like the cartoon of the shows.
Yeah.
So it's either you're like, limada, right? Or it's like,
exactly
qad darastu, whatever. And so then I kind of answered his questions, and he said, well, why, and he said, how long? He goes, so he said, what do you want to learn Arabic? And I said, likay afham al-Quran wal hadith. And then he said something like, let's see how long it lasts. Yeah, he goes, we've all been there. These are like Syrians, right? So they've experienced a lot of difficulties. It's 2016, 2017, around that time, 16. And so, they've been through an interesting road. And he says, yeah, we've all been there. They all started laughing. Yeah, they said something like once you can like something like عندما تفهم القرآن فماذا تفعل بعد ذلك, and then I was like, so it was so sad to see. So I let him have their laugh, and then I went over, I do my thing, I held the guy, grabbed him, yeah, and I said, Akhi, and I just said to him, I've been in this pursuit for 10 years that has led me out here. So it hasn't dried up yet. And I said, and I hope that whatever you lost, I hope it comes back for you. I said, I haven't exhausted this. And I'm like a crap student, so I certainly don't say this as a person who's actually learned much. I said, I haven't exhausted any of it. It is as exciting as it was at the start. And I just try to, I said, I genuinely wish that you get it back. So I don't know where that story came from.
It was more of like specifically you diving into like knowing yourself and
So anyway, the point is that like you still the point for me to say to this guy is that all of this deen is applicable here and now, and the cynicism that shaitan would love and your lower self would love and all your shayatini friends would love, the inner cynics inside all of them, everybody had it. Well, oh, you're gonna go study Quran, then you go and study, they're like, well, how's your studies doing, buddy? And you're like,
after 2 months, are you hafid yet? It's
exactly, yeah.
Can you understand the Quran? Yeah, straight away.
You know, and that's the cynic that, you know, that nihilistic, what's the point of anything? That's what the modern world produces, unfortunately. But
even the idea, sorry, just because we've experienced it, and you have to, the idea, whenever you tell someone, oh, you're going to go overseas, they're like, why don't you just do it here?
Yeah.
And there's such a completely different thing with making your life, your studies, and the 5 salats in the mosque. Obviously, you can do that here, but it's a completely different experience, that your connection with, you know, the deen of Allah, when you get to, that is your life, where here, back home, it's part of your life. You know, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Even just having that small portion, like living in the West, you don't hear the adhan from your house. Yeah. You know, it's like literally like down the street. You don't go to the mosque 5 times. You don't see your friends. You're not going to classes every day. And just having even just small portions, 6 months or a year of a part of your life, you would cherish that like none other.
There's just, it's a spiritual affair, isn't it? The whole existence is ultimately like, you know, you are surrounded by these hearts. When you're in like a madrasa experience, like you have, every person is there for God's sake. You know, it's so different to uni. That's why your uni friends have such a different relationship with uni friends than anyone you met in your studies. You know, definitely. But like why do I come out like 3rd year to Australia now? Yeah. And mashallah, we've been so active with the programs. But why is that? It's because a lot of the people that have brought me over and invited me and arranged stuff for me is because I met them all in my studies. Because the sohbah, for the sake of Allah, is completely different. So it's not just, I'm not just highlighting like the importance of friendship in Allah's sake. My point is that the life experience you have when you are with those people, like you said, when people are praying, when people are just, their outlook, everyone's outlook is for God. These are some of the most, Tareem was one of the best places for that, because from Maghrib to Isha, like everyone's reading Quran. The whole town. You know, and those places still exist whilst we can have access to them.
Did you go to the Dawra, or did you stay there? Like,
no, I wasn't there for the Dawra. No, I was just there for like after the Dawra I came. Okay. I was like there for.
Do you recommend the Dawra? Like, I know there's like a 2-week one now in the summer.
I say to everybody, there's
a 40-day trip.
Yeah, 100%. Look, what else are you really gonna do with your life? Tell me.
And time goes like that anyway.
No, that's the conversation over.
Yeah.
What possibly are you gonna do? What? Go work.
Yeah, like what's the importance?
Like, they're gonna drop you the moment you die anyway. They're gonna replace you like that. Seriously, like, you know, just what is life, man? You know, and this is the point, and so it doesn't make sense, man, And so anyway, so when I came back, and I was as passionate about, you know, like I love Arabic language. I personally love the worldview that comes into with the Arabic language. So what it opens up to seeing like higher realities about the world, you can see just through Arabic. Like by calling it dunya and alam, I have a completely different outlook to lights, to cameras. Otherwise, I'll see a camera, I'll say dajjalik dunya, you know. But then I look at it alam, and it's a tool to come closer to God. You know, things like that. So it's just such a sweet life. I mean, you just saw the tone change in my voice as I said it, you know, and in my face. I felt it literally inside. So it's like the world. So when I came back, I just thought to myself, okay, there's Arabic, and there's like, and I personally have an interest in like theology and more specifically ilm al-kalam and its ability to navigate like theological positions through logical deductive arguments and inductive reasoning and so on. So I kind of like that, because it's the meeting place with a non-Muslim or a person who doesn't understand Islam. You have to meet them at this point. So it's a really good way to get to that. But when I came back, I realized, you know, somebody's depressed, and what am I going to do? Hammer him like philosophical and theosophical points. Like, the dude's depressed.
It'd be overwhelming, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Another guy, you know, that guy's got anxiety. You know, I got dudes like grown-up men telling me like, you know, life's so difficult. I wanted to walk onto the train tracks, and I'm just like, what's going on, man? I got you got like now a culture like back in 2017 especially, we saw a culture of like people reading affirmations now, looking in the mirror saying, I'm a beautiful princess, I'm a beautiful princess. What's going on? And so I look at what am I going to do? Start Arabic class?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm going to serve the deen. The Prophet, he was there, he served, so I'm going to do an Arabic class. As much as, I did do the Arabic classes because that's what we know, right? But then off the back of that, I thought to myself, all right, let's look at what do people need. And one thing I saw consistent was that people didn't know themselves. Just as in my journey, one of the things that when you go study is you face yourself a lot, because now you have nothing that you blamed on before. We blame everything, yeah. Like, well, why we're not amazing is because bro, how can I do it? Because I got this. Well, let's take them away. What happened now? And you have to face the fact that it's just you versus you.
Yeah, we definitely felt that.
Yeah.
Because I was 20 years old, he was 18. We're coming into this, our parents are not around. We're staying in our own place where it's like, I can literally stay home all day. I don't have to go to English class. It's up to me.
Yeah.
And that's where the intention comes in, the responsibility. And it's really a shock.
Yeah, but once you start to realize that it is you versus you, then work on removing yourself as much as you can, the obstacles that you set up for yourself. Work on those. So if you can make peace with whatever has agitated you, me and him will have a better time around you. Just like that. So the whole deen, and that's why man arafa nafsahu qad arafa rabbahu, often quoted as a hadith. It's not a hadith, wallahu alam, but as far as I know, it's not. And it's a saying that's attributed to Sayyidina Ali and to others, but it's certainly something that a lot of scholars picked up on. But even then, we know that whenever you start to better the self-knowledge, the knowledge about yourself, you will only be better in any situation. What's the common factor between your gym life, your relationships, and I don't know, your diet? Just those three things. What's the common factor? You. So you can learn a diet, you can learn gym, you can learn three things, or you just learn about your own behavioral patterns and hack the system far quicker. So anyway, and then I came across one thing. I was very fortunate also, the types of teachers that I had, that they were very open in terms of like the subjects studies. It wasn't just two subjects that we always, like if I ask people in this room now what are Islamic subjects, we'll say fiqh, aqidah, maybe tajweed, maybe we'll say tazkiyat an-nafs. After that, what other Islamic subjects are there? What's an Islamic subject?
Maybe like theology.
Yeah, which is aqidah. So
yeah, okay. Doing
what else?
Arabic.
Sirah, which I mentioned. What else?
Tafsir.
Yeah, okay, tafsir. So why did no one mention maths?
Because you
why
wouldn't.
did no one mention geometry?
Maybe
which was such a big part. Then when we go to the non-Muslims, you know, Muslims were like leaders in geometry. Why were we the leaders in geometry when none of us said geometry? Partly because colonialism, our schooling got closed down, so all we know is what we were fed, but we were fed from people who were not in that great education system anymore. There's a few gems still around, and when you have those gems who have, a sanad going back to true scholarship, you find that they maintain these traditions. Like most of the great scholars, like will know like 4 or 5 languages. Even till now, like the proper scholars don't stop on like 2 or 3 languages.
Have you seen the resume of Imam for the Ottoman Empire? What they need to know?
Yeah. Remember
that is
I saw
elite.
that.
When I saw that, I'm like, bro, not one person nowadays. But firstly, there was an age thing.
It was like Arabic, Turkish,
Urdu,
Farsi.
Farsi. And it's like you have to be fluent in 5 languages.
Yeah.
You have to have a beautiful voice. You have to know like 3-4 hadith books memorized. You have to be handsome. You have to be like of a certain age.
Wow.
And it's like, whoa, there was a criteria that was met. Where nowadays it's like, I don't know what to do with my life, I'll go study.
Yeah,
it's a fallback option, which is unfortunate.
It's very common. Many parents would have like, imagine you had 4 boys or four kids, and you have the good kid. The good kid goes on to uni and study and becomes a doctor or something, and the bad kid is like, what do we do with him? Let's throw him into madrasa. Well, if you throw a nutter into a madrasa, you're gonna create a religious nutcase. And that's assuming that you don't have. That's the modern madrasa system. The old ones still had like training tazkiyat an-nafs, but the modern ones, not all of them have tazkiyat an-nafs. Do you get it? So that you're teaching a guy fiqh and aqidah and all these different subjects, but the tazkiyat an-nafs is left to himself. Well, how can you do your own tazkiyah? Because you're already compromised. Because it's like, do you know what I mean? Because you got the nafs, so the nafs is like, okay, what plan are we going to do to take me out? I know, let's do this. And it's like you already compromised. So you have to have like an objective, and like normally was done with a teacher, like the Murabbi or something. And I don't mean like the great sage of your time. It might be that, you might be lucky. It might just be your local teacher who knows you really well. It certainly is your parents. Your parents are those Murabbis earlier on in your life, and probably still going as well. Well, most likely they will be. But this is also an important part. So I kind of looked at the different sciences of the many different sciences that I looked at. Like even like poetry is fascinating. Like the proper, like when you study like the science of poem patterns and what poetry poems were written. So old poems were written on like certain patterns. There's not a lot of them. There's like, so one of the things that we would do in our Arabic studies, we would detect by being given lots of poems. We would detect. It's almost like Morse code. It's like a bar and a dash. So I would detect off the poem the code that it's based upon. Being a maths teacher, it probably helped me because it was like algebraic. It's like you're trying to figure out the code sequences. But that's why maths was such a big part of the tradition. That's why geometry was a big part, because geometry was maths in space, and music, which was poetry and all this, was mathematics in time. So sequences in time will look like a beat. You get it? That's a pattern there. Dum tish, dum tish, dum tish, dum tish. Right? And so a lot of these old meters were like that. You had like a bar dash, like they would go fa'ala, 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 da, 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 da. And then you would put poems on top of that. That's why Mawla Yasalli wa sallim, like this everyone knows this, can be used on so many different tunes, because it's just the way it's done is like it's a banger. Like it's because it's done upon this pattern that will work on many different in different song form. Anyway, point being is there's lots of subjects. Like I once did it with my teacher, and we did a joke, and I said, Sheikh, because I sensed the pattern, so I said, Sheikh, I'm gonna beatbox on that, and you sing a qasida on that, and it just perfectly aligned. And that's why modern music doesn't have anything like that. It just has a digital like techno, like it's like computer. Whereas traditional forms of poetry, they were of organic things. For example, in the Arabia, they would be off the back of a camel. You know, you ever been on the camel? And so what they would do as they were on it, they just start blazing poetry on that beat. So I had my son. I was holding my son. Yeah, he was on top of me, and I was walking on the sand, and as I changed the terrain, he adjusted, because he could feel what I was experiencing, the subtleties. Because shi'r is like sha'r, and it's like feeling, which is like fine hair. Sha'ruk, the hair. It's all linked, and so he would have to adjust himself as I went onto a different terrain. So that's the same organic nature of what poetry and application of the mathematics in nature, which is almost, you could argue, God's mathematics. So the scholars would have deep discussions about what are numbers, what's zero. Muslims never considered zero a number, because nothing is ever something. That's a 101 in philosophy and in theology, because I think it was, what's his name? The guy in the wheelchair, scientist.
Stephen Hawking.
I think it's in his book where he says at the start, his whole premise is that nothing is something, but nothing cannot be something. That's a contradiction. So the whole book now, you don't even have to worry about the rest of the book, because you've already nailed him on the foundations, you know. But the point is, like, that's the way these sciences would go. Like, it was a really rich tradition. They would argue, is one a number? You know, I won't start that conversation, but it's and I'm teaching in madrasa, like on the Sundays, and I'm with the kids. I'm like, let's have this. Is one a number? The argument is one is not a number, if anyone's wondering. 2 is a number, 3 is a number, 1 is a unit. So no one says like, hey, there's one Batman. They say, hey, there's Batman.
But isn't that that's
because it's a unit?
Yeah, that's how, obviously, even in Arabic, that's how you'd say something. You wouldn't say there's one table. You just say there's a table.
So in understanding, is any one thing of anything is a unit. 2 of those is a number now. 2 lots of that thing. 3 lots of that thing. 3 burgers. If I have 5 burgers in a bag and I give you 2 bags, you will say 2 bags. But in the bag, it's just 1 bag. In the bag are 5 of 1 unit of the 1 burger. Does that make sense? Anyway, you know. So point being is it's like that these sciences, what I just referenced, these were sciences you studied before you studied like deeper level of fiqh. Because if you can understand these, imagine what you could do with application of fiqh. But if you can't even get past, stop, you're hitting my head, just leave me with the bags and the burgers, then how are you going to understand the nuances of other sciences? Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Because it's something you don't really consider. You go straight to the other courses.
So for example, when you studied grammar, what was the biggest life lessons you got from grammar?
Life lessons from grammar.
Well, you should have a life lesson from grammar. If you're not getting life lessons from grammar, what are we doing?
Well, that's a big question. I can't think
I'll tell you one of them, yeah?
Did one of the cameras turn off? I heard. I
That's
started the
alright,
camera.
man. The show still goes, huh?
Yeah, of course.
Watch this, yeah? Shall I stop or shall I keep going?
No, keep going. Okay. That camera's on.
So watch this. So one of the things that you learn from grammar is you cannot pronounce the word if you don't understand the context of where that word is, without the harakat. So if you can't have the tashkil, yeah? So if you don't have the harakat there, yeah? You can't pronounce that word unless you understand its position in the sentence, right? That's
True,
grammar,
yeah,
right?
True, yeah.
Is it Zaydun or, you know, what we do? What's the state of the word? What state is it in? So the biggest thing, that life lesson that grammar taught you was unless you understand the context, you can't understand the thing. You can't understand the word without the sentence. I can't just give you Zayd. I need to know when Zayd was fa'ala Zayd or fu'ila Zayd or whatever, you know. So I need to determine that, and I can't determine the sentence sometimes by the paragraph. Because if you have a harf, like a atf, like a wow is saying whatever, you know, you have to go back to what is that ma'atuf. Point being is that you have to understand the context. So grammar will teach you that you cannot isolate a random word. You have to understand the syntax is understanding the sentence in which the word is in for me to at least even pronounce it. I cannot honor the word and understand the word without context. So if I train that really well and I understand the importance of, so if you said to me, which word is this? I would say, well, what's this? I would have qualifying questions before I can answer. If I learned that, then the next time you give me a fiqh question, I will ask follow-up questions to understand the context in which that fiqh is being applied. But if I don't understand the importance of questioning, I'd be really dumb to answer fiqh questions without understanding context. That is how you're going to make a problematic situation. Imagine and that's why the internet's so difficult, because you take a random position on and someone's like, yeah, you know, you can just say this to X, Y, and Z. You don't understand the variables of that situation. That's why you need a mufti, and that's why you need somebody who considers good. All the best teachers will ask you follow-up questions.
And that's why many people are quick to be like have opinions and everything as well.
That's a sign of jahiliyyah. You know, jahiliyyah, ignorance. One of the meanings of jahiliyyah is reactionary.
Interesting.
It's like you're just reactionary. Like proper ignorance, you just you know, like Sayyidina Ali said, "Man jahila shay'a a'dahu." The one who is ignorant of a thing is hostile towards it. So that's the world we live in now, because we don't know. It's like, just hostility, this hostility that creates. That's why Abu Jahl was Abu Jahl. Before that, he was Abu Hakam. That's fascinating.
So what's your approach with starting to get people, because there's still a lot of people, even my age, Ashraf's age, and that getting to know themselves and, you know, kind of figuring this out as well, the self-discovery. Where do you start with
there's
that?
so many areas. There's so many things. One of the classic ones when it comes to self-knowledge is identity. Who are you? Yeah. We can help a lot of people just by asking this one question. Who are you? And most people say, I am Mohammed Isaaq, right? I'll say, if you change your name tomorrow, do you cease to be who you were? My identity so much upon my name. I'm Muhammad Isaaq ibn so-and-so, so-and-so. That's not really who you are. Because we're looking for a definition. It's maybe a part of who you are, but a definition has to be a constant. So then people say, well, what's on my thoughts are who I am. We'll say, well, your thoughts are the most changing thing on the planet. How many people associate who they are with what they... And this kind of conversation of identity.
Yeah.
In fact, most people... Young people are always looking for identity, right? Like, it becomes so much more peaceful when you say, I'm an Australian. I'm a Muslim in Australia, rather than I'm an Aussie. Because these are the conversations that immigrants would have with their children, you know, the kids like
Yeah,
that.
what comes
Am
first?
I really Arab though? You know, and we had this conversation certainly where we came from, where the kids would be like, Dad, are we really Asian? You know, like we say Asian for like Pakistani and Indian, and it was like a sketch on TV called Goodness Gracious Me, and the kid was like, oh, and he asks his dad a question, and he says, Dad, what does it mean to be a Sikh? And so the dad says to him, what do you mean? What a silly question. And he goes, no, what does it mean to be a Sikh? So he goes, a man, bug. Yeah, bug is the thing that the Sikhs wear. Bug. He puts it on. He goes, Sikh. You know, he goes, that's how simple it is. So this is like, and so then he's like, no, but that's not good enough. And the dad's like, simple. He gets another example. He puts something on top. He goes, that's a Sikh. So the idea being is that we're so ignorant of our identities, and we have such fragile identities. If I go vehement like, oh, I'm a Pakistani and you're an Indian, well, what would have happened 60, 70, 80 years ago? My identity was a construct of somebody else's maps, drawings, you know, somebody's naming. So we have identity, right? Allah. أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وعلى كلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. That is literally the, you know, identity, opposite of identity crisis. So in that, when you understand that you are, the most consistent thing in you is your soul. That's who you ultimately are. And your greatest investments will not be in that face of yours, because that face, I can punch it right now and it won't be the same. And you don't have that much control over it. And your thoughts will absolutely be influenced because you're nodding your head even right now. So your ever-growing thoughts, the most consistent thing that you have, which is the fact that you are ruh that came from somewhere and it's on its way somewhere. So you better work in and around that as your constant. Because the moment I go into my grave, if my identity was all rooted in dunya, oh God, what have I got? But if I rooted myself in my spirit and my ultimate journey of where I came from and where I'm going, it's a very different journey in life. So that's one aspect. So one thing that can really help people is to really identify with their spirit and to understand the constants that I have a nafs, you know, we're supposed to. These are the affirmations. What I just said, by the way, this one we're supposed to read in the morning to make sure my identity is clear, right? My other one is supposed to be, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min sharri nafsi. I seek refuge in the evil of my own self. وَمِن شَرِّ كُلِّ دَابَّةٍ, right? And of all the creatures that you've created, you know, وَلَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي, these types of things, don't leave me to myself even for a moment. This is the kind of understanding that these are my constants. So my constants are, I have this ridiculous potential by being a ruh. So now I can never write myself off. But I also have a nafs, so I better not get too comfortable. These are your constants. These are knowing yourself. Like, knowing yourself is to understand you have a greater potential and you have really, really terrible potential as well. So how are you navigating yourself within those? And in that, then we explore behavioral patterns. We look at aspects of our mizaj, our temperament, which was a big part of traditional medicine. And we start to understand how every person has a tabi'iyya, a different particular nature. Some are quick to respond. Some are slower to respond. And that's a whole thing. If we open up, I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah, so it might be, as they say, like a simple thing, but not easy. So it might be a time-consuming thing. Yeah. Do you think this is step one in the self-purification, the full potential, like we spoke about before? It's like before you can reach your full potential, you have to know yourself, which obviously doesn't make sense. Yeah.
No, but you have to know yourself in everything. Like you, it's essential. Like if you, for example, you're doing tajweed, right? If you don't know how you're saying your ayn, like it's that situation where someone's like, the sheikh is like ayn, and the person's like ayn, and they're like ayn, and he's like ayn. You know, like maybe record it, play it back, and try to see how are you saying it. Where's it coming from? Put your hand here. Now, is it ayn or is it right? Like this is all, self-knowledge is in everything. We don't always have to isolate and be like, let's study the self. That's not the point. But the point is that there are aspects of the self that you might want to become familiar with and aware of, because it will repeat in everything.
For the people that...
But sorry, just to go back. The reason why I concluded with something like this rather than the Arabic class was because, let's be honest, if I do a class tomorrow called Aqidah class, who's coming? A couple of people who know the word Aqidah.
Yeah.
If I call it theology, I get a few more people now who also know the word theology. If I call it, does God really exist? Now I get people who probably need that answer more. If I say God doesn't exist or something like, we wouldn't do that. But just my point is that the name of what we're doing has to be familiar with the culture in which people are living in. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you cannot share with something to the point which it doesn't relate to them. We were on a youth camp. I'll just quick story and then we'll get. We were on a youth camp. At this camp, it was a Muslim, like 150 students we had, participants. And there was these 4 girls who were from a non-Muslim background. They were worked at the center, this little center where we're doing kayaking and all that. So we're making wudu now. We're getting ready to pray. We're praying on the grass. Create good memories for kids. It always works, yeah. One of the little girls, she comes up to me. She goes, she's getting ready, and then I said to her, "Why don't you invite those other non-Muslim girls? Why don't you invite them to come and pray with us?" And she said, "Oh, fantastic. But what do we say?" Then I said, "Well, pretend I'm one of them. What would you say to me?" She was like, "No, I can't do it. You go do it." I said, "No, you can chat to him. You've been chilling with him for the last few days. There's the potential thing, right?" So she's like, "Oh, okay. Would you like to come pray with us?" And I said, "That's a good suggestion, but are they really praying?" I said, "Why don't you offer something like, would you like to experience prayer with us?" And if you offer the word experience on anything in the world we live in, because we're all experience based, everyone's down for it, bro.
Yeah,
everyone's down for it. Yeah, if you call it dhikr, would you like to come to do dhikr? Would you like to do, like, I remember when I used to work at one of the shops, and then I'd ask for my manager for a prayer break, and the responses I got were hilarious. Once she was like, I was like, "Hey Rachel, can I go pray?" She was like, "Why? What did you do?" Right? Another time, I was like, "I gotta go pray," and she was like, it was just like, "Why do you need to go play for?" I was like, "No, I need to go pray." She was even more confused. It's like the reference point. But when we say to these girls now, "Would you like to come experience prayer with us?" They were like, "Yeah, we're down for that." So then they came to pray. So then the little girl comes. She's like, "They said yes, but they're asking, do we need to make wudu?" I said, "Well, pretend I'm one of those girls. What would you say?" She's like, I said to this girl, "Well, they don't." I said, "Do I need to make wudu?" She said, "Yeah." "Do you need to make wudu?" "Yeah." I said, "Why do we need to make wudu?" "Well, because we're Muslims, so we need to have wudu for prayer." I said, "Are these girls Muslims?" She said, "No." So do they need to pray? Do they need to do wudu? She said, "Well, they don't need to do wudu." This is how you apply fiqh, right? Yeah. So she said, "We do not need to do wudu." I said, "Good." I said, "But what could you offer them?" She said, "I could say, would you like to experience wudu?" Yeah. She said, "Yes." I said, "Brilliant." So she goes back, she goes, "They're making wudu, but now they're asking, do they need to cover?" And she said, "No, they don't need to cover, but we can give them the full experience."
I seen that. Sorry.
And these girls now are full experience, wudu done, everything.
Yeah.
And they prayed with us.
Sorry to cut you. I seen a video online as well. I think it was a Islamic society in America, in the States. And they were getting that thing where it's like, do you want to experience wearing a headscarf? Yeah. And they were getting non-Muslims to do this.
Just speak their language. It's not manipulation. It's speaking their language. Yeah. It's talking to people at their level. This is a hadith. Just be aware. Like, if I tell a kid, like, why does Andrew Tate convince somebody? Because he's like, this is had to be a man. But if you're doing a talk, I had to be a woman, like, the dudes are not going to go. Yeah. Because you're speaking at their level. So it's always like that. It's always, you got to understand. That's why I said to you guys, understand the nature of what they're exposed to. By understanding, like, one of the guys from Yemen came back to me, and we were talking before I came here. He just came back recently, and he said, "Isaaq, I saw what you did with the work, and like, you got any tips and stuff, And I said, "Don't forget the guy you were when you went to Yemen. He will advise you far more on how to do. The guy you became will tell you what needs to be done, but how to do it will be the one you left, because they will relate to it. That guy more than the guy who's come from Yemen." It makes sense. So I said, never let go of that guy. So as much as I understand, I'm a believer, I have Islam, inshallah, but I also know I'm a Westerner. I can't make this kind of conversation with the West, and demonize the West, because what happens if I demonize the West whilst living in the West and being a Westerner? I will have a real difficult time inside. You see this all the time. These guys are erratic. Because if I demonize the West whilst having my Pepsi and burger, like, I live with that.
Yeah, how does that work? Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So demonize, maybe call it the secular. The West is in the East. It's the global monoculture is everywhere, and it's a secular worldview, ultimately what it is. Anyway, so that was my point, was people are at this level. What would entice them to this study would be far more self-knowledge, and what is one of the fruits of the program, rather than a studying of mizaj or something. Give people the fruits of the work. If your Islam is amazing, you don't need to tell me, show me the fruits of it. And if I see on you, I'm down. Remember that. Just show the fruits of the thing. But if you haven't got the fruits of it, why would I want to roll with you? Like, ask yourself, why would a non-Muslim want to roll with this? Because we're not giving that guy anything in his life that he needs. Sada. So unless I find him within me and get that for myself, I'm never going to give it to him.
I wanted to ask for the people that aren't in Melbourne, who obviously, like, because we have some listeners that are from interstate, overseas, and they might not get the opportunity to see you while you're in town. What are some...
They don't need to see me while I'm in town. Just stay at home, be safe.
Alhamdulillah.
Be cool. Pray your prayers and stuff.
But this, like, the idea of knowing yourself, it's like, I actually want to do that and I want to take this journey. Do you have some action steps? Like, is there videos online, books to read?
So the actual course that's knowing yourself is actually like a 2-day weekend program. Knowing yourself whenever you get to know yourself, there's a lot of truth involved. Now, truth is beautiful and truth is very scary. Everybody wants the truth, but what? They can't handle the truth. Yeah. So I don't really smack this stuff on YouTube, and I'm also a bit kind of anti, even though I'm playing with the idea of YouTube and, you have to engage and stuff. But I don't see the formula too healthy, because everyone who stays on there long enough believes in their own hype, and then gets kind of like lost a little bit. That's why every YouTuber, give him 4 years and you see him crying on YouTube, and it's like, what the heck's going on? Because it's the beast, right? It's the nature of the beast. Privacy is a beautiful thing, and I really appreciate my privacy for as long as I can, keep it. And inshallah, I can keep it. But so I think the course itself is like that's why we have like an actual course and a learning and so on. But for all of us, muhasaba, muraqaba, these are like, just part of the Islamic tradition to really take yourself into account. The Prophet ﷺ said, take yourself into account, die before you die, these types of things. So he said, take yourself into account before you're taken into account. So measure your life. I mean, if I was to make it, maybe for everyone can do this here right now, and anyone who's listening, that assess your life from the most final point of your death version of you. What would that person say about your life right now? What would the deathbed version of you, what would that person say to you right now in regards to your life? That's taking yourself into account before you're taken into account. He'd be like, bro, chill. Like, no, we don't do that no more or something, yeah? So things like that. That's what I would recommend. And considering also your outlook, kind of language. Language is a big deal, subhanAllah. So that in the mirror, people look in the mirror and they're like, I'm a princess. Why are you saying that? I'm enough. For who? When people say I'm enough, there's a big culture now, like, people's like, I'm enough. I'm enough for who? Who disturbed your peace that is now living rent-free in your head, that you're now making yourself enough for?
Yeah.
Bonkers, though. So everybody, and then you look in the Prophet ﷺ's word, the Prophet ﷺ, he left us everything. So one of those things you see when he looks in the mirror, he says, Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi. That ticks if someone's like giving you a hard time over your look, and then now the affirmation say I'm beautiful. Well, we have a better version. It's called Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi. Oh Allah, as you've made me beautiful. And look in the mirror and give yourself a little wink if you need to. Then say, fahasan khuluqi. So bring in what these affirmations are giving you, but do it the prophetic way, which actually then also says, Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi. Oh Allah, you've made me beautiful. No matter how big they say my ears are, you've made me beautiful. No matter how ugly my nose is, you've made me beautiful. And isn't it true? If I call you a loser long enough, you'll feel bad. If I call you champ, winner, you'll feel good. You'd start liking me.
Maybe not champ in Australia.
Yeah. I got that from the Americans. I use it all over the place now. Yeah. But like if I call you those nice words, you'll feel it. And so we have these words that have been already designed and have been, are inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi. As you've made me beautiful, hasan khuluqi, make my character beautiful. And so on and so forth. So I would really ask people to really consider the words that you have now adopted for yourself, the kind of words you use for yourself. If they're overly loving of the self, that's dangerous. And if they're like really debasing the self, that's also detrimental. Al-mu'min la yudhilla nafsah. A believer does not like debase themselves. So this kind of from like American TV shows, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. You should not use phrases like that. I know I'm the worst.
Yeah, it becomes so normal for people to use
This
phrases
is
like
problematic. And then also running around like I'm a gangster. You're not a gangster. And everyone gets exposed with these things, staring at the world through my rear view. You don't even drive.
this. Yeah.
No one's after you. But if you build this paranoia before, then you will, you start to, this is the kind of like the manifestation stuff people speak about. It's like, because if you now walk around paranoid and you've now adopted and understood your identity to be the villain in that movie or the gangster in that movie or whatever, then you now have become conditioned based on a worldview that you didn't even know was forming before your own eyes, based on whatever you listen to. That is a theory, like your favorite movies and books is the reason why you love them is because you find yourself in them.
Wow.
Favorite books and movies.
And movies, yeah. So if like just think of like one of the top movies in your mind, it's because one of the characters you saw yourself in there, or your potential.
Resemblance, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I think we might have to wrap it up soon.
Sorry for like a most all over the place.
No, it's
podcast
beautiful.
Honestly,
we're ever gonna
man,
have.
wallah, I wish we could keep going. I mean, honest, but I know the New Year's coming in 2024. A lot of people do have these New Year goals and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that was really interesting today that you brought up was like reaching your full potential.
Yeah.
And just, it's maybe like a high aspirations, how you said before about having 5 businesses, seeking your goals, your
Yeah, and
dreams.
the Sharia is there. I love asking people like, what's the purpose of Sharia? What would you say? Structure,
Like balanced and righteous life.
balance, rights. What do you think is the purpose of Sharia? Organization.
Life intact.
Yeah. So by your answers, you guys have certainly said an aspect of Sharia, structure and organization. You guys probably appreciate structure and organization. Maybe you have it, maybe you don't have it that much. That's why you appreciate it. Wallahu alam. But they're all truths. Yeah, you can say safeguarding, right, etc., etc. One of the things that Sharia also does is Sharia cultivates the best version of you. There's no better version of you than the one that prays. There's no better version than the one that gives charity, and so on and so forth. Covering my hair, growing a beard, etc., etc. So the Sharia is like the best life you could ever live. A Sharia-based life and then adorned with like nawafil, right? This would be the best life. The way of the Prophet says, some sunnah, so fard and sunnah in that regard. Now, if that's your best life, how could I offer you a better life than that? Like, if I said to you, like, your better life would you be having lots of businesses, right? So that might be a version of you, but there's a hierarchy there. What comes first? What comes second? See, if most people complain about their lives, people will be like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. You don't understand, and they need to do it for an iPad. You don't need an iPad, therefore you don't need to do it. You see how this conditioning's formed? It's fascinating, huh? Like, women will give their husbands a hard time about, we need, you need to earn more so we could do this. Do you know what I need to provide for you? Do you know what I mean? But it's like iPads are not, but I need to go to work now to live the life that I want. Make sure you've clearly identified it's what you want rather than what you need. Because it might be manittaba hawahu, it might be the one following the desires. So anyway, the point being is we have to be really careful. So one day I called one of my teachers. Do I still keep going?
Yeah, your camera's on.
Okay.
Your camera's on.
So one day I'll call one of my teachers and I was just thinking, is there like a hierarchy of like needs in the Islamic tradition that I can help myself making sure that I've covered before I go for my other things? Yeah, the extras. Before I book my trip to Dubai, I need to ask myself, what have I catered for already? So I called him. I said, do we have like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs in our tradition? And he goes, Dr. Asim Yusuf, you guys check him out. He goes, what else is the maqasid al-Sharia? I said, hang on a second, that's very interesting. I looked at maqasid. The maqasid is to preservation of religion and spirituality, to preservation of life and health, preservation of mind and education, preservation of property and wealth, and family and honor. 5 areas. I thought, well, that's very interesting. And you can absolutely see that these are the 5. So you see in our tradition, they have the 5 essential areas are these. Then you have the hajiyat, and then you have the tahsiniyat. So we have a class, an actual class, but I'll share here just the nuggets of the point. Is measure your life and your goals from these 5 areas. Just measure your life from these 5 areas. Make sure these 5 are covered in your goals, and then look at your things that will support the tahajiyat or the tahsiniyat, or that will adorn your life. People make their goals at the start of the year for the tahsiniyat with ignoring the essentials. But the essentials are not just reading your salah. The essentials also say property and wealth, family and honor. How many people in the pursuit of property and wealth are ignoring family and honor? People are delaying their marriage as part of the teenage construct. The teenage construct. Huh?
And
you got that, the construct that's conditioned,
even in your 20s,
and they think that we don't need to do it because they got constructed. This thinking was done for them. They believe, no, I've decided. You ain't decided jack. You watched it in a movie where this lady was delaying marriage because she was going to become a big hot shot in some corporate business, or I'm a gangster, I need to get this stuff done, that stuff done. And what's happening is we're getting sold this Dajjalic nonsense, and it is Dajjalic, and yet it's important to remind people of the Dajjalicness of this, what we're exposed to. What is Dajjalic in principle? Inversion of truth to falsehood. Inversion of every truth that there is into falsehood. One of those is inversions like you can really get about without marriage. That's an inversion. And every guy knows this more. And then a woman will say, okay, yeah. But a guy would be like, yeah, bro, I get it. Right? Inversion. So we have societies now that has lots of inversion. People say, I need to have this much money and this much money and this much money. But we're already told that a lot of it does come from your risk as well. Like when you get married. And anyone who's got married will tell you, every person who's got married has told us, bro, the risk comes. It's fascinating. Anyway, so then you realize it's probably a journey of courage and faith more than anything. But anyway, so the point is that these are the 5 areas. So I would say to everybody who's listening, as it comes to the new year, consider these 5 areas in your life. Do you make 5 goals for yourself? A goal in your religious. If you have a pen and paper as you're listening, make sure you, not to you guys, but they can do this. You guys should do this later. I'll do it as well. Religion and spirituality. Consider your religious life and your spirituality. What do you need to do this year? Got that? Could be from the salahs, could be from some sharia, like, you know. Then look at your life and health. What do you need to do in your life and your health? What goals do you have to have? These are the more common ones people do. Then mind and education. What goals do you need to set yourself for your mind and education, your growth in knowledge? You have to do this every year. 5 goals, 5 areas. Then your family and honor. Think about your family. Think about your honor. Think about having a kid. Think about in 20 years' time, are you going to say, damn, I should have had a kid earlier? Something like that. Wallahu alam, everybody knows their life. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying consider this. The last area is property and wealth. Consider your property and what would you say on your deathbed? Man, I could have opened up an orphanage. What would you say to you when you feel in your grave? I could have done this, I could have done that. You know, and the welfare system does kill a lot of our brothers because we just think, well, it doesn't matter, I'll get paid from this, I'll get paid from that. So those are 5 areas to consider. And then I will say, if you know your mizaj, know that your mizaj, every single 3 brothers here, even me and anyone listening, your mizaj makes you focus on one area, 1 or 2 areas, and ignore an area. So there are brothers out there, your temperament, your tabi'iyah, you could call it your personality. I wouldn't call it that, but that's shakhsiyah. Tabi'iyah is different. The tabi'iyah and your akhlaq produces a personality. That's the proper study we do. Anyway, my point being is that your tabi'iyah, your nature, will make you a kind of a guy who every year you focus on mind and education while ignoring your life and health. Plenty of guys we know who are like that. Yeah. There's other people who their mizaj makes them focus on property and wealth every year while ignoring religion and spirituality or family and honor. Araftum, yeah, you get this. There's people out there whose mizaj is making them focus on family and honor every year and ignoring the property and wealth. So brothers are 10 years down, they got no savings. So this is a good way from the maqasid's higher goals of the sharia, to use this framework from the scholars, from Imam Juwayni and others, is to understand, there's other variations, but you can just you can use these 5 goals and assess your life. What I would do, I do this as an actual class, but I would say to people, just do this. Write the 5 areas that I wrote down and assess where you are in each of them, where you would like to be. And the one you find the biggest difference, you spend 6 months on that.
Is in the biggest area of
the biggest difference. So if you like say, I would like to have 20k saved, but I've got 0k, but I'm reading 300 salawat, I want to hit 500 salawat. What's the bigger difference? Your property and wealth. Yeah. So chill out with your salawats for just a moment. Yeah, you're already on 300. It's fantastic. You're in the nafal area already. Yeah. Go and earn some money for your family. You get that?
Yeah, just focus more on that.
Somebody out there is like, family and honor. Oh, I can't get married. How can I plan to get married? That's what people say to me. I've actually convinced people to write a goal in the family and honor. You don't live with the results. You live with the effort you gave. So the effort may be that at minimum, I will open myself up to one potential conversation a month. For 6 months, I spoke to 6 potentials. That's what I'll die with. You get it? But if I didn't even offer myself that, then what have I done upon myself? It's called injustice. And you did that upon yourself because you closed yourself off because of whatever. And you are the only one who's going to rebuild that ability to trust or whatever people are in life. Do you get this? 5 areas, the one you find the biggest difference in, I would say to you, if you've got 100 hours to work on something, if I give you 10 goals, how many hours do you have per goal?
10.
10 only. 10 hours per goal. If I scrap all my other goals and have one goal and I have 100 hours, how many hours do I have to achieve that goal?
100.
See the difference?
Tenfold, yeah.
So I say make your 5 areas, but the one you find the biggest disconnect, go full throttle for yourself. Unless you're already an achiever and you regularly do goal setting, then you maybe do 3 or 4. But if you've never hit goal setting and you've never actually, and everybody knows this because everybody hits targets, but tries to hit a target. If you're really bad with your targets, take the path of least resistance. Chill with those other targets. Focus on the one that you need and make sure that gets done. And they get reduced. You can reduce. Someone says, I want to hit Hajj. I'll tell you guys a quick summary. You say, I want to save for Hajj. How much do I need to make in a year? 20 grand. For me to make 20 grand in a year, how much do I need to make in save? Yeah, save in 6 months, 10 grand. What does that look like per month? You see how it's become so much less. What's that looking weekly?
It's more realistic.
What's it looking weekly? You see how it becomes now. My target is this week. I just need to save $400, and if I play my cards right and I can push that to the side some capacity, what will I have saved in 1 year? What will I have saved in 5 years? I have 100 grand saved in 5 years as like side money. So this is like, so some people need that money. Some people need family and honor. Some people are ignoring marriage, ignoring. Worrying about, but can I provide for my child? Sure, Yani, what's this? What mindset is this? Who's created this mindset? Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, because sometimes if you're not,
mans are like 32 and 33, and now I'm not saying everybody go get married. I'm saying open yourself to potential. If you're speaking to people and you're trying, khalas, I'm good with you. You chill. If you're 36 and I'm trying, I'm cool with you. But if you're not trying and you've given up, and everybody knows this themselves, I don't mean to give anybody a hard time. I'm going to give them a hard time. But in that giving them a hard time, but you trust yourself with that. And I leave it with you because that's what Sayyidina Abu Bakr said. Do not hold me responsible for what they say about me because you know me better than I know myself. But remember this, he also said, I know myself better than they know me, but you know me better than I know myself. Meaning that you will live with whatever targets you've been hitting and God knows that. Whether you've even made them as targets for yourself.
I think it's the idea, like you said, about the 80-year-old self. It's like a lot of people saying, no, I'm content the way I look, or content with the job I have, or the path I'm on, the path of least resistance, like you said. But at 80, are you going to regret it? I wish I wasn't as overweight. I wish I spent more time with my mom or dad. It's like, then really ask yourself, like you said, that 80-year-old question. Get that advice from your 80-year-old self, and how would you look at it? Don't look at the path of least resistance because, like you said, we have to grow, we have to get better year by year. What's the point of this life if we're not getting better?
And the beauty with this is I've not mentioned any specific goal for anyone. What I've said here is sit with yourself, know which situation you're in, and make an appropriate goal for your life. None of us, because some people might want to be going for gold. Some are trying to get over that situation. Some are trying to get out of those addictions. So just know where you are and know la yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. What does that mean? Allah doesn't put on a person more than they can. Yeah. What it also means is wus'aha, which means what's within its potential. So Allah doesn't put what's more within your potential. So any situation we find ourselves in, it means that Allah knows that we have the potential to overcome it. So this kind of modern believe in yourself. No, we say believe in Allah who believes in you. Yeah, don't believe in yourself by yourself. Believe in yourself by believing in Allah who's put you in there. He can help you overcome it. It's what a difference there is in my strength when I say Allah. Because the day I get weak, then everything will crumble. But if I believe in Allah, Allah doesn't leave me.
Fearless,
and you just that's the shuja'ah that that our deen promotes. And Wallahu a'lam, Allah knows best. You know, I'm just talking to myself here, having a conversation with the lads.
Now, Allah,
You know.
Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah.
You know, may Allah reward
Barakallah
you for
feekum.
coming on.
May Allah bless you guys. You know, this is the type of stuff we need, that creative stuff. Just being, you know, and thinking outside the box, and just your name. I like the name of the podcast. I just want to mention that.
Speaking the language of the
Yeah,
people.
speak the language of the people, because now fair dinkum. Like my brother played in Perth, and he came back and he was like fair dinkum, fair dinkum. He's a cricketer. But if you called it like, you know, I don't know, Hidayah podcast, what does that sound like to James down the road? It sounds like Agraba.
It does, yeah.
True.
We've gotten some suggestions. Yeah.
He understands the intro to be doo-doo-doo-doo, you know, like so like in the streets of 40 Days, 40 Nights, Baba Ali, because that's their reference point.
Yeah.
So this is so excellent. When I saw fair ding, I was like, fantastic. You got got a good setup. Keep it up, man. Allah give you more tawfiq, and
I mean,
you know, make sure you're getting adverts on here, so you're bringing revenue, so you can actually increase your quality of content and broader scope of engagement. People love podcasts, man. Why? Because it's the same principle. They listen to the podcast where they see a degree of themselves in one of those people.
they could be on that seat right there next to you.
Inshallah, yeah. Inshallah.
Honestly, it was an honor to have you on. I know Ali and I absolutely loved it. Inshallah, the audience benefits a lot from it. And obviously, that people can find you on Instagram at Isaaq Mohammed. Do you have any other social media they can maybe find
we
you?
have the Instagram Knowing Yourself page. There's a Facebook page called Knowing Yourself as well. Then there's a website, just mohammedisaq.com/KYO, and it takes you to the online page. We have a lot of any class that we've ever done has also a digital version of it. So people can just go and they can just access things online. So that way it's more comfortable for people. We have all the stuff on Mizaj, all the stuff on goal setting. All of it's available online. They just need to browse around a little bit, inshallah.
Beautiful. I promise you won't regret it. Inshallah, invest, spend the time, learn from Brother Isaaq, and inshallah you'll benefit.
Inshallah. I just want to give a shout out for the boys in the back, because it's very important that, you know, where we have to remind ourselves, as-sayyid al-qawm khadimuhum. Right, the true noble people of a people are the ones who are doing the khidmah. So may Allah bless those in front of the camera and behind the camera as well. May Allah give you guys barakah in your lives. Anyone who's listening as well, may Allah put, you know, that Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. And we beautiful dua we read, Allahumma nas'aluka al-afiyah fi dini wa dunya wa ahli wal mali. Right, so we want the afiyah, well-being in our deen affairs. May Allah give us that. Dunya affairs, may Allah give us that. And in our families and in our wealth as well, inshallah.
Jameel. Jazakallah khairan.
Barakallah feekum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.